much stuff on the floor. What did we go through? 50 gallons on that?
Yeah, about 50 to 60 gallons of blood. Stuart kept saying, more blood, more formula.
What was your formula for the blood? Can you remember?
Yeah.
Pretty straightforward. You know, Caro syrup, red and green food coloring, maybe a little water, a little photo flow, so it didn't quite stain as bad. But there were sometimes that people went home, you know, looking like they had a real nice blush on.
But that's stuff you can put that stuff in your mouth because it's just germs, okay?
Yeah, but we had mouth blood because the photo flow is a photochemical, so we had stuff that's specially made to go in the mouth. And then for the, whenever you saw that foam coming out of their mouth, all the actors had a kit of bromo seltzer, water, and food color in their own personal syringe. So we had to load them up with a spoonful of bromo seltzer and then give them a shot of the bloody water. And then, of course, they dribbled it all over the floor, so we had to pick that up.
But the bromo seltzer's got aspirin in it too, so we have to be real careful so that we didn't thin their blood, you know. Really have cat passing out on us.
And we had their own jars of Maalox, so if they got upset stomachs. So,
Yeah.
So, going to From Beyond, I was wondering what the trials and perils of the many effects that were needed for that as opposed to Re-Animator, which was much less monster oriented.
Well, first of all, and you know, I mean, we all know about the other Re-Animator movies, but to me, the true sequel to Re-Animator was From Beyond, because that's where we all got to do, you know, that was like Stuart and Brian saying, okay, we got a little money now to pay you, so hey, let's go to Italy. So you know that's the same group of people, and as far as, well, the pineal gland for me was the biggie, you know, was to make it so that the one coming out of Jeffrey, you know, there were 5 or 6 different gags, including a piece that I had a machinist that worked on aerospace work, and it had 54 pieces in it, and could be made longer and shorter by threading more elements on, and it actually had a little controller that had a box on the back with an adjustable controller, a lengthening device as well, so we could get off. Now that was built, that part of it, the cabling and stuff, was built by John Criswell, who also worked with me, and Johnny subsequently went on to head up the all of the creature animation department for the Henson Company for the last 18 years. So
it was a very involved show effects-wise. There was many people working on that show. I think Mark Shostrom's company was involved with it. One of Robert Kurtzman's first films, partnering with Mark Shostrom. It was a huge undertaking. In my experience, Stuart never tries to do anything small. He tries to make it larger than life, and that's why it's so dynamic and great.
Yes.
Is House of Re-Animator still being developed now?
Well, with the rise of Michelle Bachmann, I think we need to come back. We're dusting it off, you know, we're kind of rethinking it a little bit, yes.
Yes, way back to that.
What kind of budget were you working with for Re-Animator, and where did the money to make it come from?
The budget was $800,000, and it came from investors. Brian Usna had raised the money through, you know, friends and investors and so forth. And you know, it was it's funny now, you know, $800,000 in today's world sounds like a lot of money, actually. But back in those days, you know, it was a tiny budget, really.
Yeah, my budget for effects was $50,000. And we put just about dang near every penny on the screen. And on the screen credits that you saw, about a third to half of our crew was unpaid interns.
they were my students from my personal makeup class. I said, hey, we can either postpone the class or you get your first film credit. How about that?
That's pretty
Actually,
sweet.
one of the gals that was did the hair for the Hill Wigs, they liked her hair work so much, she became the hairstylist for the picture. Yeah, Melanie.
And then for Arsenio Hall after that. She was his personal.
Well, that makes sense from Re-Animator to Arsenio Hall.
And how many shooting days was it?
19.
Yeah, I was going to say 18.
19 original days, and We did 3 days of inserts after Christmas, and then you did the pre-title sequence.
Yeah, so all in all, I guess it was about 20, something like that.
22, 23.
It was actually more than that. The last day of shooting was a 23-hour day on set.
Tell me about it.
Yeah.
By the end of the day, I went blind. My eyes just shut down, and Carolyn luckily was with me, and we were driving back we rented an apartment, and on the way back I was driving and I suddenly could not see and had to pull over, and she had to take over.
I think we had to do it because it was so close to Christmas, right? Was it like Christmas Eve or?
It was the 23rd.
Christmas, it was the 23rd,
Yeah,
and then
we
it was like,
wrapped.
nobody could go on after that. So we had to finish.
And there was another little film called Nightmare on Elm Street coming into the stage, so we had to wrap out that day. Literally, yeah, it was the 23rd. I hadn't bought a single Christmas present. I literally went over to the mall, went in, and bought Christmas in one day, then went home and slept for one day.
And I went on a theatrical tour to London right the next day. I think I had 2 or 3 hours sleep. And every play that I saw, I fell asleep. I saw Maggie Smith, fell asleep. Joan Plowright, fell asleep. Roger Rees, fell asleep. That was it. I didn't see anything.
You know, it sounds like a lot of blind panic and a lot of people working a lot of hours. But I gotta say, the whole experience was just fun. There was a jovial attitude on set. Everybody had a great time. And having been on a lot of movies, it's rare. It's rare that you have that. And when you have a movie that everybody's depressed and tired and they don't want to go to work, the fish stinks from the head. And working for Stuart, it smelled great.
I wasn't sure where you were going with that.
Yeah, I also want to tell you that we had a little moniker for Stuart working on his movies, and that is more is not enough.
Were there any other kind of stories from the set that you can remember that were just?
Oh, the DP and the nudity.
Oh.
That's a good
Hey, you do the best Mac Allberg, you tell him. Mac Allberg was the second director of photography we had, and he looked through the camera and make certain comments because we couldn't show male genitalia. Okay, we tried cod pieces; they didn't work. We had these poor these extras in a spray booth, and we'd stand them up and then spray paint them with spray guns for the lividity makeup and the death makeup and that. You tell them what Allberg said, yeah.
Well, of course, angles are very important. And this was, Stuart was a theater background. Organic theater, Chicago, all that. But when it came to film, I think this was your first, right?
First feature, yeah.
Yeah, first feature film. So, so Stuart is still going through the process, and Mac is like, he said, Stuart, I'm sure things look fine from over where you're standing, but you should really come and look through the camera. Because from this angle, first of all, this looks like shit. There are things hanging everywhere.
The beanies.
Beanies, yeah.
The beanies.
The beanies, yes. Beanies hanging everywhere. And let's just say one of the extras was amazing in that area. And it was hard to hide. No pun intended.
They ended up, somebody made the suggestion that if you painted them black, they wouldn't show. And so there were makeup artists painting penises black.
They just look bigger.
I remember looking at Mac Allberg, very upset. I said, "What's the matter, Mac?" "It's the veinies."
I I had people come up to me after they saw the movie, they said, is that really what happens when you die, it turns black? It's like a banana?
We tried merkins, we tried, you know, a number of different things, but there was just,
Well, we were so naive.
how do you hide the string holding the merkin? I mean, you know.
I think that this is the first New Beverly Q&A that a merkin has been brought up. I'm very happy.
And we were so naive, we thought that that was the only problem with getting an R rating.
Yeah, how did it?
Yeah, now
how
they
did
do
it
worse
squeak
on
by?
CSI at 9 o'clock, and then even we did the picture.
How did when you showed it to the MPAA, did they say anything about any of the scenes?
They, I think that what they said was that your movie's going to end up being about 14 minutes long. I have to really say that it was, you know, the film was distributed by Empire Pictures and Charlie Band, and he took the really outrageous step of releasing it unrated, which, you know, is still a very, very brave thing to do. You hardly ever see that happening anymore.
Of course, today there's an NC-17 rating, which would have been perhaps allowable.
Yeah, but nobody even uses that, you know, so the fact that the movie was released with unrated, I think was really a fantastic thing, and sort of added to its kind of cult status. You know, this is a movie that, you know, no one under 18 was allowed in the theater, I believe.
Were you surprised by the life the life it had after its release? Because it's something that, you know, college students all over the country, that, you know, it's one of the staple movies that you watch.
I'm quite amazed, and the fact, I mean, this is a 26-year-old movie that we're watching here this evening, and the fact that you guys were enjoying it as much as you were just really made me feel great. Thank you so much.
Just a statement on the ratings thing on From Beyond, not Re-Animator, was, you know, just the fact that you have this thing coming out of the foreheads and wiggling around and poking at everybody and all that sort of stuff. When they first sent it over to the MPAA, they said, oh, no R. And they said, well, why? And they're like, what can we cut? And again, it'd be like a 17-minute movie. And I don't know if you remember this, but they called me up and they said, would you go over to the MPAA for us and show them your research? Because you really do have a pineal gland, and it really does look like that. It's on a tiny, much smaller stalk, but there is a pineal stalk and all that sort of stuff there. And after going over and showing them that we base the sculptures and stuff like that, for at least the smaller one, you know, on the actual size and shape and detail of a real pineal gland, and then they're like, well, we really can't diss something that's part of the real brain, so we got to allow it.
We thought that if we didn't have as much blood, but used slime instead, that we'd be get an R rating. That was, we used this stuff called methyl cellulose, which is what they put into McDonald's milkshakes. It's made out of wood pulp, if I'm not mistaken. It's a thickener. And I remember when we had, you know, all the actors had to, you know, were literally covered with this stuff. And Barbara said, "You're going to have to warm this up for me, I think." It's freezing cold. And Carolyn, you know, it was her sequence that the MPA got the most upset about, which is, you know, in From Beyond, she plays Dr. Block, you know, playing starting, you know, with Re-Animator, she's been playing all of these sort of bitchy doctors, and it was her death scene that they got really, really upset about.
I didn't know that. I'm offended. I had no idea.
Well, it was.
What was wrong with that?
Well, you know, what happened was they wanted me to talk to the MPA, and I went down there, and the lady, it turned out I think it was the librarian, started scolding me, and she said, you know, what were you thinking when you did that scene? You know, you keep pushing in closer and closer and closer and closer. You know, she's like waving her finger in my face. I'm sorry. Just give us an R rating, we'll be happy. You know, we'll never do it again. But luckily, I mean, it was so funny. About 20 years later, we were able to find the scenes that the MPA cut out of From Beyond, and we were able to restore the film. And Carolyn came back to redub that scene, do you remember?
I do. I do. I don't think there was much English being spoken. It was just sort of, I give good,